Hey yo, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, beautiful people of the internet, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Life of. This is episode 4, I think, 4, I hope, 4, with the one and only Miss Alessandra Pichelli, a fellow Canadian, a fellow wildlife athlete. She's an all-around OG in the sport, 8-time CrossFit Games athlete. She offers some awesome insight that can only be brought to you by someone who's been there that long. This is one of the most OG people I've talked to in the sport, so we touched on some really cool values in the sport side of CrossFit, the new system, but obviously as this podcast, this conversation series is focused, we did get into a lot more. We talked really deeply into the mental health side of things, which was amazing. Alessandra opened up a lot about some of her struggles with mental health and anxiety and some tools that she's used to overcome them that I think can be super valuable to a lot of you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Before we get started, if you can't tell already, my friends at The Wildlife, as always, supporting me in what I do, but they are presenting today's episode. Alessandra and I are both homies with The Wildlife, both athletes for The Wildlife, and they are just an amazing company looking to keep what I'm doing coming to y'all's TV screens, phone screens, or computer screens. So big shout out to them. First link in the description for all of your fitness apparel needs. They make some of the best clothing on the market. They have hats, they have headbands, and they also sell a bunch of other really dope products like Theraguns, my Power Dots, so many other different accessories. Literally a one-stop shop for everything you need fitness. So be sure to scroll down, first link in the description. Now, without any further ado, let's get into this episode with the one and only Alessandra Pichelli. My name is Nate, and I have a creative void that I'm looking to fill. And this is how I plan to do it.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
You guys might have seen him on our vlog. His name's Nate Edwardson.
Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex on. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cut those off. Yo, squad shady, my bros raw. No breaks, we go, 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 go. Don't shade, that's a no.
How you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, just got back from Dubai.
Yeah.
Trying to get used to this time zone again.
Yeah, I can imagine. Have we hung out in real life?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I feel I always I don't know. I wouldn't say I always have that, but every once in a while I'm kind of like I know we've been in the same place at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we've ever. I wasn't with you when the Buttery Bros filmed with you last year for the Open.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of all the other times I was working for them then, but I wasn't with them for that interview. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Huh.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
How's the comeback from Dubai going?
Good. It's hard getting back in a routine, and I'm just gonna take this week easy, and then just getting things organized. Just did some Christmas shopping, and
Nice.
doing some normal people things right now.
I feel like the sleep must be brutal, right? Because it's literally you're on PST as well. It's literally a 12-hour difference, right? It's the exact opposite.
So it took me probably 4 days to get used to, and then I feel like I finally got used to that time zone, and then flew back here.
Brutal. Yeah, I did that.
Oh, great.
I did that with London a couple of weeks ago. Not as dramatic, but still, I think it's it's when it's nighttime here, it's pretty much morning there, and it's that weird, just you finally get used to it right before you leave, and you leave and come back, and then you're messed up again. That's the hardest part of travel. It's just literally when you shift time zones so drastically like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's dramatic. Anyway, so this series itself is, I always like to kind of give a little bit of context because I mentioned it to you before, but it's an interview series, but it's based a lot more around you as a person and your life surrounding what you do in the sport versus just talking about what your max lifts are and what sanctionals you went to and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the focus of this, just so we're on the same page. First thing I want to talk about, The Wildlife. Woo!
Yeah.
That's literally my note. I just said The Wildlife. Woo!
No, they're awesome.
Yeah, so that's one of the cool things. They're sponsoring this episode, presenting this episode, obviously. I've been working with them for 2 months. How long have you been with them for?
Oh, I don't even know the amount of time. It hasn't been too long, but definitely like half of last season, I want to say.
Yeah. Was it
So,
Andy that reached out to you initially, or do you know who it was that you connected with initially?
I think it was Andy.
Yeah, Andy. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, all of them are super nice.
Yeah, it's a dope company. It's Australians are like, you're Canadian. Australians are very much like Canadians. It's like same level, you know, like we're very nice. We say sorry. We're very polite, you know. It's the same, not to trash all my American viewers here, but, you know, Canadians and Australians are like yin and yang together.
Seriously, yeah.
So.
It's true story.
Yeah, very true. You're an OG in the sport. That's kind of the first place I wanted to start. You've been around for a minute 8 times at the games, right?
Oh my god, it's just crazy because like I still remember when I was being called the rookie, and now I'm like, wow, I feel old.
So nuts. What was your rookie year?
2013 was my first year as an individual, but I competed on a team in 2012 and we got third at the CrossFit Games. So I guess technically 2012, but I guess no one ever counts the team year.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. It's one of those things where everyone has, not everyone, but a lot of people went team before they started their individual career. But yeah, everyone always only count. I don't know why that is. I feel like it's pretty legit, especially back in those days to go team. You know what I mean? Because it was big teams. They weren't super teams. Like it was, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I feel like it was like just as, anyway.
Yeah.
So 8 times individual or 8 times total?
I think 8 times individual, yeah, because since first year was 2013. And,
right.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at math, but I'll trust you on that.
It's going to be my 8th time as an indie this year, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, number one, how has that been? But also, like, what has been the life outside of that, like, the whole time? Like, have you been a full-time athlete that whole time, or were you, like, working in a job and kind of transitioned out? Like, what has the life around it look like?
I think, like, the first half of my career, I was I had other jobs going on. Like, I was going to go to physical therapy school, so I was working as, like, a physical therapy aide, and I had a couple side jobs. I was like an assistant rowing coach, and I did some coaching as well. And then most recently, I just switched to the full-time focus on training.
Nice.
Yeah.
Most recently, as in like in the last like couple years, or?
Yeah, the last 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. I don't even know when I stopped.
Yeah. Was that like a dramatic juxtaposition for you? Like going from like having other focuses to like just being able to focus on training?
I mean, it still like felt just as mentally taxing because like once I really made the switch and told myself I was going to commit to training, it almost seemed like training was that much harder. It felt like a job in itself.
Right. Of course. You know? Yeah. So. It is. Yeah. Was that mainly, so you said like that was mainly like a mental shift. Was that like also like you feel like you applied more pressure to yourself then? Because you're like, I'm putting all this time into it, like more's got to come out of it? Or was it just like the fact that it was your sole pursuit?
I mean, yeah, there was a little bit more pressure because obviously like the better you do, the more money you make, and you can't just, another job where your salary is set in stone, So I guess in that sense, I felt more pressure to train harder, and like if I'm doing it, I got to do it right. So.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. I can imagine. I was having a conversation with Cole Sager the other day, and he was mentioning that like a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the athletes really value their placings for like the monetary benefits of it. Like it really kicks into like your lifestyle, and your ability to keep doing what you're doing is how you're able to place, and obviously like the compensation you get for that. So it's crazy because it's something I think a lot of people don't really realize. They think you're just kind of like set with the sponsors and you're just good, No,
exactly. Like for me, it's never really been about the money, but then if that's all you're doing full time, like you have to make a living somehow. You have to pay the bills. So in some sense, it does become a job, but that was never my sole motivation. And, it's still like isn't, but yeah, it's still want to make a living.
Well, I mean, and to be honest though, that's probably the best way to approach it, right? Because like I think you see now, especially with like the sanctionals and all that and all the different opportunities out there, like more and more people will probably start doing it with the money in mind and the fame in mind, now that the social media fame is like a legit thing. And like, you know, doing it the way you did it, starting back when you did, like the money wasn't really much of a thing. The social media thing still wasn't really that big, relative to where it is now. And like, so starting, it's a good like, you know, kind of comparison to anything in life. Like if you're starting it for the reasons of making money and getting famous, it's probably not going to go well for you, you know, like especially something like CrossFit, because it's like, that is such a daily grind and a daily process, and like 99.9% of everything you're doing to get where you want to be is nothing of what you think the glory is. It's not the money, it's not the social media, it's not the time on the competition floor, it's like in the gym. Mm-hmm. That's insane. Yeah. What has made it sustainable for you over the course of this time? Like that's a long time, 8 years, even the last like 4 years being a full-time athlete. Like what has been working for you that's allowed you to live that life?
I think mainly, like staying, I guess, up there on the leaderboard, and then getting, you know, sponsors that can support your training lifestyle. And then, so that really helped for me. And then obviously, like, my husband's been very supportive, and we've been there for to allow me to continue training. So it's just a combination of things. And then, just the will to keep going.
Yeah, seriously. How long have you and your husband been together for?
I think, we've been married for 5 years, and we've been together for about, I want to say like 14.
Holy moly.
Time, yeah.
That's crazy. My girlfriend and I just passed 6, and I'm like, poof.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's pretty crazy.
Are you guys like, did you meet in like high school?
No, the freshman year in college.
Oh man, yeah, that's like me and my girlfriend. That's when I met her too. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's been a while. Yeah, I know. Now I feel really old.
No, don't. It's fine. I'm a baby. How is he American?
No, he's actually German, and we met in California because he was on a tennis scholarship and I was on a rowing scholarship, and then they do like an international program to like integrate them into American culture. So that's definitely have some funny stories. And
yeah, wow, that's awesome. That's right.
I just remember being like, I'm Canadian, I'm pretty much American, like why am I in this class? Yeah.
That's so funny. Why did you choose to go down there? Just because you had like the scholarship or whatever, and it brought you down there?
I was so I grew up on the east coast of Canada, so obviously lots of snow and very cold. And
East Coast, like Maritimes?
No, like Ontario.
Ontario. Okay, where in Ontario?
Yeah. Welland, Ontario, Fonthill. It's pretty much close to like Niagara Falls, St. Catharines.
Nice. Yeah, I grew up in Ottawa.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah. So I was looking at schools, and I did a couple official visits. I remember going to a couple schools on the East Coast, and then just last minute I saw that the school in California had my program, and just like on a whim, my mom was like, why wouldn't you go to California? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, just go on the visit. So I like went on the visit, and of course it was like the most amazing weather, like perfect day. We went to San Francisco. People were like flying kites in the park, and then I just I was like, I have to go there. Yeah. It's like, why wouldn't I come to California? And of course, when you grow up on the East Coast and you've never been to California, you have that like California dream of like beaches, and so that's kind of what brought me out there.
Yeah, even since like I live in Vancouver now and just moved here in like September, and even like this is my first winter without snow, because I lived in Ottawa till I was 17, then Halifax till I was like 22, and then out here, and like not having like minus 30 and snow is like the most mind-blowing thing ever. It's like 10 degrees and rainy every day. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. You get so used to growing up with the snow that you're like, how do people live like this now? Whenever I go home, I'm like,
seriously,
I'm never going back to the cold.
No, you step in like that awful like slushy snow that's this time of year. It's like wet. It's not
exactly.
It's not enjoyable.
At least like West Coast Canada seems like you can go skiing and stuff, but
amazing.
I feel like most of the East Coast, it just like turns into the nasty snow.
No, it's not nice. Do you plan on staying in the States? Like, what kept you there, and like, do you plan on staying there a long time?
So, still figuring that out, but my husband and I were able to get a green card, so right now we're like on a green card here, like him through work and me through CrossFit. So I guess yeah, we have to figure that out since like we're both not American citizens. But
Right.
I guess we have options. But for his work, he works in the city. This seems to be like a good area for his job. So
Right.
I think like so far we're planning to stay here.
If you were to come back to Canada, where would you go?
I would love to go to like Banff area because my older sister lives in Canmore.
Oh, nice. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So we always go visit her, and I love it there. Like,
Yeah.
That's like my dream. Even though it is really cold. I guess I always go there when it's nice, and then I go there once like in the winter.
Yeah.
But she's
Totally.
always like, it's so cold here, but it is beautiful.
It is, yeah.
I would consider there.
Yeah, I was just in
Or
Calgary.
Vancouver.
Oh yeah, Vancouver. Do
Yeah.
it. Vancouver's dope. Yeah, I was just in Calgary last week with Alex and Meredith, and even just like obviously you're still an hour or two outside of Banff, but like it's like beautiful. Like the West.
Exactly.
I like the coast. Like I think Canada's best on the coast. East Coast is beautiful in its own way. Like East Coast meaning like where I lived in Halifax. Yeah, like Halifax,
exactly.
PEI, like that's super beautiful. But as soon as you start encroaching like New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, it's just like ugh. But then you get farther out west and it's like just a whole different kind of beautiful, you know? So
exactly. So
I'm like, it's so funny that over the last like year traveling and like doing all this stuff, like I've become so patriotic. It's like ridiculous. Like I just I'm like Canada.
Yeah.
Pat and Brent cleaned up at Dubai. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Super nationally proud. But so setting up kind of like down the road, like do you want to keep pursuing, because like 8 years, that's a minute, like that's a long time. How much longer do you see the CrossFit thing going for you, and like is it something that you want to be able to transition out of but stay in the space, if that makes sense, like when you're done competing, if you're still able to stay within the space in some regard?
Yeah, I think that's always been the question for me, and like now I'm 33, and every year I'm like, I question like how much longer I'll do it, but then I feel like still every year like I'm still getting better, and like I haven't seen like a decline, and I'm still like after every competition I'm like motivated to get better. I think the only thing that might stop me is if I like want to start a family or something like that. Then, so that's the only thing that I have to consider, because otherwise like it's even like motivating to see that Kim Briggs is.
I was literally about to say, just look at Sam. She's a beast still.
Yeah, so I think in terms of like, if it wasn't for like having a family, like I would say like, oh, there's no limit. I'll just like keep going until like, until like something tells me like, okay, you should stop.
Yeah, something blows up.
Like, my leg doesn't work anymore. Like, yeah, so, but I've still been feeling good, and like I'm motivated for this year, so I kind of take it year by year and just like see where I'm at, and then we have a talk about what's gonna happen next year. But so I guess we'll see after this year, but I guess I'm getting up there in age.
Whatever. CrossFit and athletics is such a skewed view of age. It's like ridiculous. Like people who are in their early 30s, like, I'm old, I'm a master's. It's like you are like so young in life. Like you still could like completely change your life and do whatever you want. Like but like on that topic, like do you see yourself like when you do inevitably stop competing, whatever that might be, even if it's like 10 years from now, like do you right now see yourself wanting to transition into something that's still tied into the space, like coaching, nutrition, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think I'll probably always more or less be like tied into that lifestyle. Like I always want to be fit and working out, and then maybe career wise that's something I've thought about. Like I'm not exactly sure what I would transition into, so I'm still kind of thinking about that. But I think just this lifestyle is always going to be a part of me, and always something that I love to do. So I think in some form or shape it's gonna I'm always going to be in it.
What aspects of the lifestyle around it, and like where you could take it, do you like are you really fascinated with the nutrition side? Do you really like the training side, the strength and conditioning? Like what is there like one aspect you gravitate to towards others?
I think I'm really interested in the nutrition side, and then the strength and conditioning as well. So I think something more in that. I'm not quite sure about like coaching or anything like that, but I mean I'm certified to coach, but I'm just not sure that's not as much what I'm passionate about. Like I like doing like one-on-one stuff, but I think more interested in the nutrition side.
Yeah, no, totally. It's cool. Like I was chatting with Colleen Foch this morning, and we were chatting something similar, just about how the opportunities are really endless. Like when you have built a platform in the space in CrossFit, there are so many different avenues you can go down, and you can kind of focus on whatever that passion is, and like you have the audience that you can then build off of and build from to develop something, whether it be a nutrition program, one-on-one training, whatever. So it's cool because the opportunities are there. You know what I mean? Like it's not really something you're probably gonna have to worry about too much. So
yeah, exactly.
What day to day, like 8 years? I keep saying 8 years. I can't. That's a long time. I haven't interviewed anyone yet that's OG yet. It's a long time, and like that's a grind. And like you were talking about when you were working a full-time job, like what about it fires you up so much? Like what's kept you in it all these years? Like, big esoteric question, like what inspires you, but like bit more like focused, like what in CrossFit really like motivates you to keep going?
I think just because CrossFit's that type of sport where like there's always so much to improve upon. Like it just never ends. Like I think even after this last competition, I'm always like, the most exciting part is when I get to like write down like, oh, like this is how I'm going to change my training so I could get better at that and that. And just like over the years, seeing like the amount of people or even like young girls that I've inspired, I think that's really cool. Keeps me going, because I think it kind of relates to, I always remember like me growing up, like I always like wanted to be kind of like a warrior, strong woman. I'd watch like, I don't know, maybe it's too old school for you, but like shows like Shira and Xena and like, I just, so anyways, they're about like, basically like warrior women who just like defy the standard, and they just, so I feel like I always wanted to be like that. And then even when I was younger, so my dad's a pilot, and I was very interested in like women in aviation, and typically a lot of, it's more percentage of men, and that was so like just defying that standard. I did like air cadets, and I read like every book you could about like women in aviation, and I was like totally into that. So just like anything that it was more about like inspiring women to be strong, or to be whatever they wanted to be, like that really kept me going. And then now, like over the years, now that I've been doing it so long, it's like it's hard to imagine me like doing anything else. Like I think in the beginning I didn't think of it this way, but now the more that I competed, I've learned that like I actually really do enjoy competing and being on the competition floor, and kind of reminds me of like being like a gladiator or something like that. Like sure, you're like like you live for the glory and like just being on the floor, but it's
that like, Dubai clean and jerk, girl, that was badass. So then when I think about like, oh, what else could I do, and then I think about like a 9-to-5 job, I'm like, it's as stressful as like training and everything has been. I just think about that, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm capable of like doing that. I've always like wanted to do, like I've always just been into fitness and doing crazy things. Like even in younger years of sports, like I always so it's really cool. It's interesting, and like if you don't mind my picking it apart a little bit, like you are I would say like you're not like a crazy like loud person, I think is kind of fair to say, right? Like you're not like I've always been like very shy and reserved, and it takes like, I feel like a lot of people that are close to me, they know that like I don't appear or I'm a very different person if you actually get to know me. So I think like at first glance, or I'm not very social, or but if people take the time to get to know me, then they can see like I'm not as shy or as I appear to be. No, and absolutely. And I mean, you can definitely like, you're one of the nicest people I've ever met, for sure. And like from the little interactions we've had, and just like hearing you on other interviews and media, you're very humble and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just, my point, I guess, is just like it's very interesting to hear you talk about the warrior princess stuff and like all that. It's really cool, because it's like this fire that must just be like inside, but it's nice because it's like at the same time, like you're very humble about it. You're not one to brag. You're definitely not like out there posting anything. It's just like that like fight. So it's cool to hear you verbalize it. And I think a lot of people might appreciate that because I know I've never heard that verbalized before. So that's kind of cool to hear.
I think for me, it's like, it's even never like, sure, everyone wants to do well and be on top of the podium, but I think in the end, like, I've really more enjoyed just the opportunity to be amongst like the toughest women or competing with them on the floor. Like, I think I find that is more what motivates me or inspires me, and less so much of like being like, oh, I want to win. Like, sure, I want to do well, and like I train because I want to do the best that I can. But I think that's what I've always wanted to do, is just like be able to be in that last heat with the best women. And so that's
no, totally. And that's something I really relate to too, and it's a conversation I've had a couple times. It's just the like, we talk about enjoying the process and stuff like that, but like happiness in what you're doing and like genuinely enjoying exactly what it is you're doing, and not having to be validated by a certain achievement or a certain level or a certain rank or number count or whatever it is. Like, if you're truly happy and enjoying what you're doing now, people are going to see that, and people are going to attach to that and like want to support that. You know what I mean? And it's like, for me, for example, like I love having these conversations. Like I really, really love it. And like, that's the content I want to put out. And like whether people are like stoked on it or not, like, to be honest, like, I don't care. Like, I love doing this. Like, this is, and it's the same you see with like exactly what you just said. Like you're less concerned about the results and how other people are going to see it. You just love being out there, you love competing, and that's super cool. And that definitely answers the question of what inspires you, because that definitely, I can relate to that a lot, and I kind of know how that feels. But the one thing I want to get into a little bit is like the side of being a CrossFit athlete that has to do with like the lifestyle and the living and supporting yourself. Like we kind of already touched on, like the brand building side. Like where do you sit on that? Because 8 years, that's a long time, and I'm sure you've had your experiences in the sport and have some knowledge on that. So I'd love, if you don't mind, to hear your thoughts on kind of like how that works and what your focuses are with that.
For sure. I mean, like, in this day and age, if you want to be able to just focus on your training, then sponsors and that kind of support becomes very, very important. And when I started, I was never a big social media person, and I don't really like to put myself out there. I just kind of like to compete and do what I have to do. But now it's like, in order to be able to support yourself, you really have to, per se, like post on social media so that you're pleasing your sponsors, or you're doing what you need to keep that going. So I think, in the past, social media has been like kind of a struggle, just because I'm not as, outgoing, or I don't truly like enjoy posting on social media. But now I've kind of learned, like, okay, you post the content that maybe inspires other people, or try to, be more yourself. And then that helps me to put out more content. But like some people are just like posting selfies, or like I'm just like not. Some people are good at it, and some they're but like for me, I
totally
try to do what I can. But I guess in this day and age, like I said, you really have to if you want to, you have to stay on top of your social media. How
much of an importance is that to you now? Like, is it something you really have to focus on and like put time into, and like would you put it under like a job category for you, or like you're actually having to remind yourself and like sit down to like do it, or has it become a bit more natural over the years?
It's become more natural, but I definitely have to like put time aside and like schedule out things, and write out posts and try to make it more professional. So it has become more a job.
Well, it's funny, like that's like I'm very much in like the learning phase of all this, and like that whole world is still super new to me, and I love having these, I say this every time, but I love having these conversations with you guys, because like selfishly I get to learn a lot. But that's one of the things that shocked me the most, and I think what shocks other people the most is like seeing that it's like, it's not just like you taking this picture and just quickly writing this caption and putting it up. Like, there's a lot that goes into that. Like, there's a sponsor or a brand telling you that they need you to post something about this, and that's just cold turkey. Oh crap, I have to create something, and then you have to go and like get the image or pull it from them, and there's work to do that, and then coming up with the caption, making sure it's right, making sure the links are right. Like, you know, I'm sure there's some people that are sitting here like, oh, your life's so tough, you're making Instagram posts, but like there is a lot that goes into it, a lot more than just like what people see, the finished product. You know?
Exactly. And I think in the end, like you don't want it to just look like a bunch of like advertisements. You want to show that you actually have a passion for the products that you're representing. So I think that's been what I'm trying to like do more, is just to show more of my personality and show like, you know, that I'm really passionate about these products, instead of just like, oh, here, check this out, like this is, you know, and then like people see right through that when it's like just a pure advertisement. But you know.
No, totally. It's like, that's the other balancing act that's tough, is it's not just like, okay, I'm just gonna post what I have to. It's like you need to post like other things too, so that like, number one, your social media isn't just like a big advertisement, but also so it's like people can actually get to know you and become fans of you, so that your sponsors can see the value in sponsoring you, because they know that people are going to listen to what you're saying.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like this, it's definitely this like interesting balancing act, and you know, it's a cool world, and it's one I'm definitely fascinated by. But what value, so outside of just like being able to make your sponsors happy, what value do you put into your social media? Like, what value do you put into the numbers and the engagement and the followers and all that kind of stuff? Like, do you care, or is it just like a means to an end kind of thing?
I think like I don't necessarily look that much about that kind of thing, but I think like sponsors and stuff, they like to see that, like what your engagement is, depending on like what you post and that kind of thing. So I think that could be important, seeing like what people like to see, or what kind of content is maybe more like successful per se than others. So I guess in that sense, I would look at it that way. But I'm trying not to look too much at like likes and that kind of thing, because like sometimes, you know, like gets in your head, and then if you become too like obsessive over it, and I'm like, I don't want to stress about that kind of thing. But then, so I think the only way that I approach it is like, okay, maybe what did people like and what didn't they, and then maybe I can adjust my content or that kind of thing. And so that's how I see it, really.
Yeah. Is there like, do you ever struggle with like comparisons with that kind of stuff? Because like social media is so public. Like, Instagram's hiding like counts now and like things like that, but like for the most part, it's still pretty public. Like, everyone can see how many people follow you, and for the most part, you can still see what engagement looks like. And like, has that ever been a concern for you? Like, you know, and has there ever been like, oh, this person's more, but I've been doing it longer, and like XYZ? Like, does that ever come to your mind at all?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like you feel like it's a popularity contest or something.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting.
I kind of look at it like, you know, like I've always not been as outgoing, or there's other people that are maybe like way more active, like they're constantly posting stories, and you know, but I'm like, well, you know, that's just not really me. So I kind of like accepted that maybe I'm not putting myself out there as much as I could, and maybe that's why other people get a certain amount of followers. But then, you know, the question is like, what audience of followers do you have? Like, who knows what random creepers you have?
Dude, preach.
Yeah, that's the, you know,
seriously.
Sure, like your followers is just a number, but that, you know, there's a lot of like automated followers or like bots that could be followed, you know, so it's like you don't actually know what type of followers you have. So I think for me, like, I can't force myself to be something that I'm not super outgoing, and I don't like to publicize my life that much.
Yeah.
So like I kind of like, you know, accepted that, but I think I'm trying to put out more content that is me and maybe can be useful to other people, and you know, if that helps me to get more followers, I hope that it was, you know, people that I'm actually helping, and not people that just want to, I don't know, see you in booty shorts or whatever.
No, like, absolutely. And you believe me, that was great. You touched on two really awesome points there. Like, first of which being like, you're right. Like, what do you care about more? Like, for you, at the end of the day, you're happy where you are. You know what I mean? And like, you don't find happiness or benefit or whatever in that. So like why so many people get so caught up in like the vanity metrics, and like at the end of the day, like, you know, I'm not saying people who are completely enthralled with that are wrong or bad or whatever. Like that's if that really makes you happy, like genuinely amazing, good for you. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like so many people it doesn't. So many people it's not that important to, but it's the comparison that really messes with you. You know, like you can look at that with anything. You can look at that with like Karen and Susan on the block, who's, you know, one house is bigger than the other and one hedge is cleaner than the other, and like, you know, like it's an age-old thing, but with social media it's like so in your face, you know.
Exactly.
And so many people just like they're trying to like fake it. They're trying to be something they're not, and like that's just going to cause so much more stress, anxiety, like all that kind of stuff. And like you don't need to, like if you're not, like you said, like if you're not a crazy outgoing person, or like you just very validly just want to keep some of your life to yourself, which is like, you know what, a lot of the time you'll sacrifice if you're doing something super public. Like my whole life is on blast, like that's something I've accepted, but like not everyone wants that. And don't get me wrong too, there's still lots of my life that I don't share, but like, you know, you have to be a little bit self-aware to understand like how much of yourself you want out there. And as a CrossFit athlete too, it can be even more tough, because you're right, you see it as like, well, if I get more followers, then maybe I'll get more sponsorships, and maybe I'll get more money from those sponsors, or XYZ, or like, you know, and like that's in a whole nother tough rabbit hole, because it's like you're just gonna run yourself into the ground. You know, like you can always play that game with everything. And if you're so hyper focused on that, but it's something that's not natural to you and that you don't enjoy, it's like, what's the point?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm trying to find balance of putting content out there for sponsors, but at the same time, like staying true to who I am. And I'm just a very private person. So
totally.
Like you said, and nothing wrong with people who like sharing everything. And some people are great storytellers, so they can share that gift. But yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If you were to take CrossFit, like the last basically like 9-10 years of your life, if you were to take CrossFit out, like what outside of the sport really kind of like excites you and fires you up, and like where could you see yourself if CrossFit had never been in your life? Like where do you think your life would have stacked up?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Yeah, I feel like a lot of things could have happened. So I feel like I went down a lot of paths, but then they drastically changed.
Sure.
Like before let's say I did college rowing. Before that, I was gonna go to an aviation college in Sault Ste. Marie in the middle of nowhere. And then last minute, my mom talked me out of it, and that brought me to California. And then I still thought about being a pilot, and I always wanted to be like a fighter pilot or something like that. But then, after I started college rowing, my degree was in kinesiology and health science, and then after that, I did like a post-baccalaureate pre-med program. So I was considering going to like physical therapy school. I actually applied and I got into USC, and then that was kind of the year my transitioning into CrossFit. And then that year I had gone to the CrossFit Games. So then and that's kind of when CrossFit began for me. So then I turned down going to physical therapy school, mainly because apparently you can't get like a decent student loan if you're like an international student. So basically like wouldn't have been able to afford it.
No, and the States is like crazy expensive for school compared to here.
Yeah, I tried to like get a loan from Canada, and it was like not happening.
No, they're like, are you trying to mortgage a house? Oh no, you're trying to go to school? What?
Yeah, exactly. So I've always been like interested in like, all things health science, kinesiology. I worked in like a human performance lab, like when I in college, part of like the kinesiology department. So I've always been interested in athletics, and so I think I'd wanted to be something in that, and I've always loved like nutrition, and so I think anything in that domain I've always been drawn to. So I think like even if I didn't do CrossFit, I'd still be in, I'd still be active, I'd still be in fitness in some shape or form. Right.
Are you like a planner? Like, are you like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan kind of person?
Oh yeah, I was like.
Oh really?
I thought. I mean, I did, but like everything turned out not as I planned.
And that's how life works.
CrossFit was not on the schedule and not planned at all. And
That's
it
so
kind
funny.
of like happened, and then now that I look back, I'm like, oh my god, I like stressed over so many years of like being like, oh my god, I need to figure out what I'm doing now, and like
Yeah, it's everyone. What's that saying? It's like a plan's a plan until like life happens or something. I don't know. It's like everyone has a plan until go or something like that. I don't know. I just butchered that quote.
Totally happened to me,
yeah, something like that. But it's like that's it's an interesting conversation because like there's I don't think there's anything wrong with people who are very plan oriented and set in like I want to achieve this and this and this and this age and this and this age. But where people get really wrapped up and like a conversation I'm fascinated by is like young people especially who have these expectations of like what 30 should look like, what 40 should look like, what, you know what I mean? And like the way the world works today is like so many people stumble upon things that end up taking them through their life, or at least like, you know, a big part of their life. Like you said with CrossFit, like me with video, like there are all these opportunities out there nowadays. And like, where do you sit on like being like how open-minded people should be? Because that's, you know, that's something I talk a lot about, and part of like my brand is like being willing to chase things that inspire you. Like where do you see the line between like finding something super cool and chasing it at all costs versus like being practical, sticking to a plan, sticking to like what society would tell you to do? Box.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that I thought I like had a plan and I had to go follow that exact path, like, you know, but then I think as the years went by and but none of my plans turned out how I thought they would, then it made me realize like, oh, like maybe there's like actually so many more different avenues that aren't, you know, like don't have like a title, like, oh, I'm I don't know, physical therapist, doctor, or like I would thought I needed like a title per se, but now I'm like, you know, there's so many artists who are making money, or it's like just do what you like to do, and then
SoundCloud rappers,
kind of like some kind of avenue, or you'll find something in that niche, you know. Danny, I
was talking to Danny about a similar topic, and she said basically she's like, just give yourself a title and create an Instagram page, and there you go. You can literally be whatever you want to be. You know, like you just make up a title, create an Instagram page, and go. Like that's it. That's literally the only barrier to entry nowadays, which is like absolutely insane, but it's very true. You know what I mean? And what's something then, while you're on that path of like chasing the dream that was CrossFit, like what are some of the hesitations that were in your way? Like, was there any like mental roadblocks you had to cross? Like, if you can specifically remember back to like any like, you know, real struggles that you faced in any capacity. Like, do you have any that stick out to you, or?
Oh, for sure. I think a lot of athletes go through it, like having, you know, injury. And for me, I've always had like really high anxiety. So just like dealing with that, and then trying to get through it. And then of course, when you're in a low, or you're coming off an injury, you don't think straight, or you're kind of like in a state of kind of depression. And so I think just like getting out of that, I think that's been the most challenging thing for me. And just to know that I've like made it through each time, I think that's kind of what keeps me going. And then it's like, a couple years down, you almost block out all the negative things that happen, and you only remember really like the good things that happen to you. Because every time that happens to me, I talk, like my mom is like a sounding board for me. I talk to her all the time, and she always says, yep, that's just like pregnancy, or like having kids. She's like, you have one and you're like, I'm never doing that again, and then like the next day you just completely forget about it, and you're like want your next kid. Exactly.
It's the same thing with like this kind of stuff. But if you don't mind, I would love, because you mentioned something there about like the anxiety kind of surrounding it, and like that is something that can be so powerful to talk about nowadays, because there are so many people, especially young people, like suffering from depression, anxiety in some level. And you know, the conversation around it is growing, but I think it still needs work. Like if you wouldn't mind, whatever you're comfortable, like just sharing a little bit about like what does that look like? What is the anxiety around being a CrossFit athlete? Like what are the specific things that like you have to overcome, or had to, or still do, whatever?
I think just it's always happens like earlier in the season or before a competition. You know, you have anxiety creates like a lot of kind of thoughts and noise in your head that aren't really per se logical. So it can create a lot of like doubt or misconception about how things really are. So just for example, before a competition, I'm always thinking like, oh, maybe I'm not ready, or I'm just like not good enough this year, or every little thing that goes wrong, you have like some thought in your head that things aren't going right, and it's more of just like a high emotional stress. And then like after the first day of competition, I'm like totally fine. But I think some people are like, oh, do you have practice with that, or as the years go by, do you not get nervous anymore? I'm like, no, it's like always the same cycle or pattern where before I have those doubts and just crazy thoughts that don't make sense. But I think what's important is that you have maybe someone supportive in your life, someone who kind of tells you like if what you're thinking is not logical. Like
a sounding board
is always the one that's like okay, let's go through these thoughts, like why are you thinking this? Okay, let's look at facts, and then let's look at the facts. So and then once you kind of, I think that's like helped me, like if I think like, oh, maybe I'm not ready or I'm not good enough, my husband would be like, okay, like let's look at the facts. How did you feel last year for, let's say, the regionals or whatever? And he's like, okay, like what happened? You still made it. Or like you always think that that you'll never be successful if you feel that bad, but I think it's normal in a sense. Like sure. I can't speak for other, like from my own perception, I think that I have really, really high anxiety, and like when I compare myself to my husband, who's very just like level-headed and doesn't get it, then I think like I do. But I think a lot of athletes go through that type of stress, or maybe some have a little higher level than others, but I don't know. I can only speak for myself. But
absolutely,
what I've just learned is like, I think it's not just competing in this sport. I think it's like any job or anything that's worth achieving is going to cause that significant amount of stress. So just accepting that like it's okay, that it's in a sense it's normal and this is part of the process. It usually means like that you want it that much, you want it that bad, and that's why you're feeling that way, or because you care that much. So if you're actually like willing to put in the work, then you'll reap the benefit of it later. So that's what I kind of try to tell myself. But
and I think that's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. Like I think that's super powerful, and that's really going to help a lot of people. Like it's the idea that you can relate it to athletics because it's very prevalent, but even in life, like one of the things I've heard that is like stuck with me and I try to practice is like the example of, if you take, let's use your situation for example. You see an event at regionals, and we'll go back to RIP regionals. You see an event at a competition, regionals, whatever, and you're very stressed out that day. That day is very weakness based for you and whatever, and in the back of your mind that you've been working on your weaknesses all year, but you get that anxiety and that builds up, and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready. What you're doing in your head is you're creating this future. So you're creating this idea of like, I could fail, like this will happen, like I'm gonna go out and it's not gonna work out, and I'm not gonna perform the way I think I'm going to. But like really that future you're creating is no more or less accurate than if you were to tell yourself, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna come first in every single one of these events. Like that outcome you're creating, that negative outcome, is just as manufactured as any other outcome. Like even if rationale would probably tell you that, like, or your husband or your coach would be like, yeah, you're probably not going to win this one, but you're definitely not going to lose it because we've been working on your weaknesses all year. You're still going to go negative, but that negative is just as likely to happen as that positive, and both of them you're imagining, like that hasn't happened, and like that's probably not going to happen. Like that future you're creating, nobody knows. And it was like a powerful moment when I heard that for the first time. I thought of it, I'm like, wow, like this is literally just me telling this story. Like that's it. It's creating this story, and suffering from it before it's even happened. Because like that moment of anxiety and panic and doubt and whatever, like you're suffering off of something that literally has not happened, like, and probably will not happen. Could happen. Anything could happen. But like, you know what I mean? Like it's a very interesting concept, and it happens to me all the time. Like magnitude of things, but you look at life and you're like thinking about something that's coming and you get anxious and you get nervous, but you realize that like everything that you're concerned about right now hasn't happened. And like, why would you ever be concerned about something that isn't here? You know? Because like if that was the case, you should be scared about the big meteor hitting the Earth and North Korea nuking us, and you should be scared about the sinkhole that's coming in. Like every day you could sit there in a bubble and just be like, you know?
Exactly.
But like the future you're creating for yourself is totally your choice in like how you look at it and go. And like, you know, I'm not saying it as eloquently as I've heard it before, but it's like the idea that it's up to you, and like the way you position yourself going forward in life and like every day, and how you react to things is like, at the end of the day, it's your choice, you know?
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think, yeah, like maybe anxiety never really goes away, but I think people can definitely learn how to better deal with it, whether it be through like having a good support system. Then, you know, there's so many, I don't want to say like, oh, read a self-help book, but like there's so much out there that like actually helps. It's like you learn kind of like routine or like mantras you maybe tell yourself, and like I used to think like, oh yeah, I'll do that, whatever, you know, but now that, you know, like I've actually like put them into action, I think it helps. Like I have like maybe like certain ones that I tell myself, that say before in competition or some kind of thing, and it like, I think like it really does work. Like you just, the anxiety is always there and you always feel it, but you kind of learn how to get through it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you put in, like you said, support system and mantras? Like, are there any other kind of like coping mechanisms that you would recommend to someone, or that you found that you've been able to put in place and that have worked for you?
Oh, for sure. I think just for me, like routine is actually so important. So let's say I always have the same warm up before like I'm getting ready for an event or that kind of thing. So that kind of like gets me going, and then going like in, let's say like right into competition, I always you kind of have to change the way you're thinking. And what works for me maybe doesn't work for other people, but like for me, I kind of like pretend I'm in like a different situation, kind of like, for example, you can imagine that you're like like a warrior in some land, and you're like, okay, like, you know, I'm fighting for my family right now, and like this is what I have to do. Like everybody's like scared or not, but like this is what I have to do. And like when you think of it that way, kind of like for me changes my my mindset, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And I was like, you know, like, or even if you had a dog, you're like, oh, if you don't do this, they're gonna kill your dog. Like, I don't know, like you can the mind is so crazy that way. So powerful. Like for me, I will almost like imagine like scenarios that maybe like aren't even real, but like that maybe would motivate me. It's kind of like when you watch a movie, you become so invested in what you're watching, and it really like stirs your emotions. So I think for me, because having high anxiety, I've always had like very powerful emotions, so I've kind of switched it so I can use those high emotions to help me like in competition per se. But,
wow. No, that's awesome. And again, I feel like
sometimes I think I'm like, probably sounds crazy when I tell
No, not at all. Like I get it. And I do very similar things. Like if I'm struggling, like recently, for example, like the one thing I've been pretty open about is like this whole journey for me, like coming into the media side of CrossFit and like working with the people I worked with, and then starting my own channel. And like the last 12 months for me have just been like just so 0 to 100, and it's been absolutely insane. It's been awesome, and it's been a lot of chasing, it's been a lot of this and a lot of that, and like I kind of reached a point in the last couple months where like I was burning out is the wrong word, but just like I needed like a little bit of like more consistency, because it had been so much change. And you know, one of the things that I would always kind of tell myself, because that anxiety would build, of like I'd be doing something and it would be tough, like I'd be on a long haul flight again, and like traveling to this place I didn't know, and I knew I wasn't going to sleep, and like all these things. It's just like, you know, it's the same thing. Like you tell yourself something that may be real or maybe not. For me, it's usually like just like what I'm doing. Like this has literally been my dream for years to be able to do this. And like remind yourself of like what you're actually living. Like not what could happen, not what might happen down the road, not what has happened in the past, but like what you're actually living right now. You know what I mean? Like that, like for you, you're living this dream life. You're a professional CrossFit athlete. Like how amazing is that? And like at the end of the day, no matter what happens at a competition, that's there, you know? And like you've lived that and you've been so happy in it. And it's the same thing with this. And like even just like being a human, you know what I mean? Living in North America, like there's so many, you can really break it down and like realize that like the life you're living in a lot of cases in and of itself is just amazing, you know, and you have the opportunities to change anything that you want to change. And like it's a cool conversation, and it's really cool how the mind, like you said, how the mind works. Like it's so powerful. And again, like you said, whether you're creating something real or not, you can convince yourself of like just about anything. And like that's how anxiety and depression usually stems. It's like you're convincing yourself of something negative. And so instead, like, it's so cool what you just said, and I think that's going to inspire a lot of people, is like learning how to harness those emotions and feelings to create something positive and to create something that's going to motivate and inspire instead of tear you down and scare you.
Exactly. Like I think like you said, it's always about perspective, and like that just reminds me of like my dad has always taught me to think like, you know, like sometimes I call and I'm like, oh, this sucks, like this happened and this happened, and then he'd be like, you know, like he'd always remind me to look at the positive, and he's like, well, like think about like that person, they're probably having a worse day than you are, so like compared to them, like it's pretty good. And then like, you know, by the end of the conversation I'm like, oh yeah, like I guess it wasn't so bad, like, you know. Or like one example, so during the open, like I felt like I had like a whirlwind open, and like so many things happened. So like because we're in Northern California, we had like some forest fires, right? So like there was like, we got like evacuated from our area, so I felt like I had like so much anxiety around that. And then I was like, oh no, the open's going on, there's bad air quality. And then like
yeah,
like,
no, fair
yeah. And then like not long before that, we had like a mini earthquake scare. And like, yeah, being from Canada, since we don't have a lot of earthquakes, like I've never been like so scared in my life.
The San Andreas
like
fault,
that.
man, it's freaky.
So it was like that, then the forest fires, and then like we got woken up in the middle of the night, like probably like the day after they had the fires, and there was a shooting right by our house. And like I woke up in like a panic because I heard like so many cop cars.
Holy.
And then like, yeah, then like the last week of open, I got food poisoning. But then like in my mind, I was like, oh my God, like so much has gone wrong. But then like after talking to my dad, he's like, well, you know, like your house didn't burn down. Yeah. You know, you weren't in that shooting. You didn't get shot. Like some other people, like 5 people got shot. Like you know, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And then he's, you know, and then I remember hearing or was it Horvath's brother or someone who got hit by a car, so like they actually couldn't finish the open. I was like, yeah, I got food poisoning, but like I still finished the open, you know. So I'm like, it's all in kind of in your mind, you know. Like I at first perceived it like, oh my God, this is so bad, and then I'm like, okay, I can't even complain. Like other people had it way worse than me. Yeah. So now that I look at it, I was like, it was fine. Everything was fine.
Perspective is nuts. Yeah. Like perspective is, you know, that's a whole nother powerful thing. Is like, and it's tough, right? Because it's hard to tell someone, you know, especially me as like a white male in North America. Like I couldn't have it made anymore, really. If like you think about like, you know, in general, the privilege I've had growing up, and like I'm aware of that, but like still, even in hardships, really, no matter who you are, like there's a very real ability to look at your situation and know that like it could be worse, you know. And again, not to say that there aren't some horrible situations out there, and I'm not speaking generally to everyone, but most of the time, if you're a competitive CrossFit athlete, or you're living in, you know, a great country, and you're training every day, and like chances are there are a lot more things that could be going wrong in your life, you know. Exactly. And there's a lot more hardships that you could be having, and it's like that mindset of just like, whether it's directly comparing your situation to someone else's, or just accepting the fact that like at the end of the day, it's not that big a deal. You know? Exactly. It's like my comparison I always make is like I never understand people who flip out at customer service representatives. You know, like you're in line at Starbucks and they mess up your drink, or they mess up your name, or they take too long and you just lose it. It's like, you realize how minuscule of a problem this is? Like even if it made you miss a meeting, even if it made you like, grand scheme of life, like it doesn't matter, you know. And like there's always the ability to kind of like talk yourself off that ledge and understand that it's like there's so much more out there, there's so much more going on, there's so many more important assets of life than just what's right in front of you at that moment, you know.
Exactly. So I think, yeah, like you said, all perspective, and like I always try to stay away from like ever feeling bad for myself or self-pity, and I just remind myself that things could be worse.
Yeah, no, totally. And like, it's a balance for sure. Like, you're always gonna, everyone's always gonna have moments and times when they feel down, and like, it's good. You want to accept those emotions. Like, you don't want to bury them, but it's like you said, it's like a healthy balance of like, that self-pity and like accepting that emotion and growing with it instead of letting it like take you over. Yeah, it's there's so many conversations that can be had around the mental health side. So I appreciate you for sharing that. And I really think a lot of people will benefit from that. I don't know if that's something you've shared publicly before, but I think there's a lot of people that will see that. Lighter note, transferring back to the CrossFit side before we finish up. What has it been the last like year? This is something I haven't talked to anyone else about yet, but you're an OG, so I feel like it deserves some recognition. Is what has the last like year been like? Like, what you've been around the sport for a long time. You've seen a lot of changes come and go. Like, what has this last year been like for you? Like, all the sanctionals and the desolation of regionals and 150 people showing up to the games. Like, what was all that like?
No, I think like for me, when they first announced the changes, I was actually kind of excited because I was like, in my mind, it's way less stressful because it's like in the past you had one shot at regionals to make it, one shot depending on whatever region you're in, right. And now you have like basically unlimited chances. Like, not only do you have a chance in the open, you have like however many sanctionals there are. So it's like, make the first one, go to the next one. It's like, you couldn't do that in the past. You couldn't been like, oh, I didn't make my like regional, so I'll just go to the next one. Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't have that chance. So like, I think it was more stressful, and regionals wasn't until like May or later. So it's like, think about how much more time you have to train for the games. So it's like, now you did the open, you're qualified, you have all year to train, and you can like pick and choose what regionals you want to do. If you want to go travel, that was kind of last year for me. I had never been to South Africa, so I was like, well, so here's cool. My opportunity, let's go to South Africa. So I think in that sense, but the only scary thing was like knowing there was going to be that many people at the games, 150. So the question became like, oh, how are the events going to go, or how are these like drastic cuts going to?
The Hunger Games.
Yeah, it felt like the Hunger Games, like just cut them.
Yeah.
But it actually, like, I thought it turned out well, and like it was pretty interesting. So I think, and like after so many years, and it was because I remember when they did like Northern California, Southern California, and then the next year they did super regionals, and then they combined the regions again. So it was like, I was already used to every year being something new. So it was like, it didn't even faze me. I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah. Just like the goal has never changed, and for me, I'm like, I want to be at the top. I want to, I want to be in that top 20, top 10. So if with these changes, if I can't make it, then maybe I don't deserve to be there. That's how I saw it,
Yeah,
it's like,
fair.
This is the test of the fittest in the world. So like, if you can't make it into like there's so many opportunities, and if you can't make one of those opportunities, then like maybe you're not good enough to make it this year. That's why I see it. Like, I know there's a lot of people like in between that they just they're mad about maybe just missing it, but it's like, if that's like, for me, the ultimate goal has been to be the best. So that's how I saw it. So I wasn't stressed. I was like, if I'm good enough, I'm gonna make it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest, like I would say to some regard too, is the opposite influx that happened is like so many more people made it. Like I feel like it was pretty hard to be left out last year if you were a games athlete. Like if you were at that caliber already, you had been before, like, you're right. Like, you had so many chances, and like the backfill process, it was like the 20th place finisher at Wadapalooza got a games invite. Like, it was insane.
Exactly.
And
so from like 40 spots to like however many, 150 or whatever.
Crazy.
Like, so that's significant.
Exactly. And so with that though, like having that veteran perspective, like this is kind of a hot topic, but it's like, do new games athletes now, like, is there an asterisk? Like, is there an asterisk beside the name of being a games athlete in 2019 and onwards?
Yeah, I guess, like, in a sense, it used to be, because so few athletes would make it to the games, that, to be called a games athlete. But now it's, like, because so many more make it in a sense, I think just, like, being around that many years, in a sense, it does feel less prestigious from, like, the way I see it. But, not less deserved, but, just the fact, the numbers, 40 to 150, like that kind of does make it feel less.
And the other thing too is it's not the 150 fittest people in the world. It's like based off geography. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not the top 150 people in the Open or the top 150 cumulative finishes around sanctionals. It's like people who have passports to really small countries sometimes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, again, I'm not bashing it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just more interested in, and not to say you're the wrong person to ask, but you're also a very nice, kind person. So I don't expect you to be like, it's awful. But like, just as someone who has that experience, like, yeah, what is like, I don't know. Does it kind of suck that like someone can claim the same, that can't claim the same as you? They can't say 8-time games athlete, but yeah, that games athlete thing is like, it's kind of like, whatever. Like, so is everyone else, you know?
I think like it doesn't make a difference to me because in the end, it's like, you know, I had the opportunity, if I don't make it through top 20 or through sanctionals or that kind of thing, like, I think either way, whatever place you are, you know, even if you just make it through your country, like it will still, things will fall as they should at the games. Right. Is how I see it.
True.
So, you know, if you they could be someone like insignificant, I guess, in a sense, like having the variety of countries, it is kind of cool, like to see the flag ceremony and you know, that kind of thing. Like for me, like being a professional athlete, I'm actually dual Canadian Italian, so I represented Italy this year. So I thought that was like kind of cool that I could represent, like, you know, my family's heritage.
For sure.
Both my parents are Italian, so I thought that in that sense it was cool. And then to see, like, even at our athlete dinner, there was like you know, just so many different countries. So I think in the goal of building the sport like worldwide and getting more recognition, that was good. But in the end, for the top athletes, for the top 20, or, you know, things always fall as they should. And so I think in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't change anything. Totally.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And like, that's a really great way to look at it for sure. And the cream will rise to the top for sure. And like, you know, the Matt still won this year, Tia still won this year. Like there was nothing like that drastic. Like the cut system was a little savage at some point. I think like there were obviously like some athletes got a little bit short-ended, but again, it worked in general. And anyone who's spending, as much as I like sound, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, like to get the conversation going. Anyone who spends a lot of time upset about other people that are making it, like why? Like it doesn't affect you at all. You know what I mean? Like you were never going to qualify out of Guatemala anyways because you're not from Guatemala. You know? Like,
I think that's the difference, that people who maybe are like second place in a certain country, or they're getting mad at, like, you know, first they, so I think that is kind of like uncalled for, because I think, in the end, if you're good enough to be at the CrossFit Games, you will be at the CrossFit Games. So I think,
No, I think that's good. I think that's...
And if you if you don't make it in the Open, or you don't make it through your country, like you got to make the effort to go to every other sanctional, or to try every other sanctional. If that's what you want to do and make it, then you have to put yourself out there and give yourself more opportunity, because there's so much opportunity to make it.
Totally. No, I mean, I hear you. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. It's good insight. Like I said, not a lot of people can have that same level of understanding of the system that you do, because you've been around for so long. But I mean, in general, thank you. Thanks for chatting with me today. That was
of course.
That was really fun. Yeah, I appreciate you going into the depth that you did on the mental health side, because I really think there are going to be people listening that can benefit a lot from that and can really like take a lot into their life, even if it's not CrossFit. So
for sure,
appreciate that.
Raise your emotions.
Totally.
Even if you're an emotional person, use it to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you, and we'll be down doing a day in life at some point, I'm sure, so people will get to see a full day down the road. But
sounds good.
Again, thanks for chatting.
Of course. Thank you.
Cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up today's episode 4 of Inside the Life of, with the one and only Alessandra Pichelli. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. That was a powerful one. That was, we talked on a lot of topics that really helped me think deeply about some of the struggles I've gone through with anxiety and mental health, and some of the thought and the conversation around it. And Alessandra was really generous to open up about all that stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope some of you can take something away from it. If you enjoy this series, if you enjoy what I'm doing, guys, let me know. Comment below, send me a DM, go follow me on Instagram so you know who's coming next and all of the insides behind the scenes of everything I'm shooting. If you guys are enjoying the series as well, please be sure to hit that subscribe button for me. If you're not subscribed, scroll down on the screen, do it right now, red button. If you don't know how, you just need a Gmail account. Super easy, and it helps me like you wouldn't understand to keep bringing this content to y'all. So thank you again so much for watching. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, The Wildlife, my homies. Guys, they're supporting me in every video. It's not just this video. They're presenting this video, but they're in every single video I make. I'm always wearing their clothes. They keep me decked out, and they are the sole biggest reason why I'm able to produce this content for you guys. They believe in what we're doing here on the channel, and they want to support it. So go show them some love. First link in the description for all of your CrossFit fitness needs, everything from massage guns to recovery tools, dope apparel for the gym and life. Guys, you're not going to regret checking out their site. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode, and I will see you in the next one. And have a Merry Christmas. This is probably gonna come out just after Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is you do, enjoy it. Hug your family. Hug me by subscribing, or if you ever hug me. Oh, I guess I'm talking. Okay. Peace.